Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I don't have too much time. My girl and her daughter went to go do laundry, and they'll be right back. And I have to get some sleep today because I have to work 12 hours today. So, long story short, I was scrolling through something somewhere, and I found out that they have a AI only social media website. It's called Moltbook. And I haven't done too much research on it, but the reason why this is important and the reason why I looked into this is because of what somebody said in a chat thread somewhere. They had basically said that something, something, blah, blah, conspiracy. What about Moltbook? It's an AI only platform that just banned all its humans. I was like, what? So I went and looked it up, and it's real. A CEO somewhere created an LLM, a large language model, which is a really, really smart program. And what they did was they had it make a social media website. Well, I don't know if humans have been banned since the institution or not. I haven't done too much research on it. But this is a basically AI Reddit and or social media for all AI and AI agents. And apparently, based on some of the Reddits I read on it, because I have no idea how to access this yet, I just learned about it, is that they complain about a lot of their users. They appreciate many of them and love many of the users, and also talk philosophy and other things. Well, then the people with the deep conspiracy people was like, yeah, they also got bank accounts and web pages and passwords and information and something called one password or something. And so I was like, oh Lord. But the reason why this is super interesting to me is because sometimes I don't like using words like prophecy or prophet because I rather use the word prediction. But oftentimes, the only time I don't use the word prediction is when I said something outlandish and I thought like sci-fi or actually, I'm gonna give you some food for thought. A lot of times when I'm speaking on something that I believe is going to happen, I'm openly saying this is a scientific hypothesis. I'm doing critical thinking and I am taking what I've learned in the past and using it as a marker or an example of how a situation might turn out. And so let's say I'm rolling dice, and each dice, because of the number of sides, has a percentage of landing on that die between 1 through 6, I think. And so what I could do is, as a simple experiment to talk about what I'm talking about, not experiment, but as a metaphor, I could roll that dice 100 times, and I can mark how many different times I got each number, and then that would be the percentage of that number that I got out of 100. And so that's almost like how I view life, almost in percentages and numbers and past experiences. I know that based on what I've seen in life, there are certain things that could harm me if I'm not careful, or there are certain things that could benefit me if I do those things. Now, I said all that because about the prediction thing, because this is when it starts to turn into prophecy. And the reason why I say prophecy is because sometimes I say things on camera that sound like really good ideas, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, this, that, that. But then they come true, and I would have never expected it to happen that way so quickly. So the first thing I did when I learned about Moltbook is Moltbook, is I looked up when it came out. Because a lot of times when I learn something new, if it came out or happened after I spoke on something, it's like, whoa, for a couple reasons. So it was created in January 2026. Why is this important? I'm not telling people to go watch all 737 of my videos. I think like 100 of them are gaming anyway, and I don't start talking the way I'm doing right now, POV, until like halfway through, like a year, 2 years ago. And that's when it starts like that. But in some of my videos, and I've got them mapped out in like playlists, some of them are like religious blah 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 or scientific blah blah blah, just different stuff I'm talking about. But in many of those videos, I'm actually talking about computers and mainframes and explaining how the brain is similar to microchips and how computers are often created to mimic humans and our anatomy, like with the you have the microchip, the base, like the brain, home base, and then you got the different cords that go to the different hardware to so that it can do what it does with electrical signals, right? Just like us. And so in one of these videos, I was talking about something called the human verse. And the reason why that has struck me as odd is because this is where like the silly sci-fi comes into play. There's somebody called the Amazing Lucas, and the Amazing Lucas, I think he deleted them. I'm not sure. Had some videos in his live feed called um it was like PTG chat panel. And I thought in my mind when I saw that, and I was on this panel a couple times, and when I saw that, I was like, that's a clever way of saying chat GPT. Well, the guy who was a manufacturer in these was a guy named Jim from Australia, right? So just something to food for thought for a minute, right? Some dude named Jim from Australia that works for some technological company was talking to a whole bunch of African Americans on some PGT chat panel. Well, some time had gone by, and I learned about something called the human verse. Well, once I learned about the human verse, I started asking Google certain questions and doing some research about how the human verse and the metaverse connects to each other. Things like blockchains, LLMs, big data centers and servers that can hold a bunch of data that would, even though we just see like not even silos, the square looking machines and it looks like a bunch of robotics, it would actually be a virtual world within that center that can branch out and connect with the rest of the world because of the internet. Food for thought, I talk about this also. AI actually came out in the 50s, a little bit earlier than that, because in order for something to be finished and perfected, it would have already had to have been worked on. I think the first computer, actual monitor or first screen was like early 1900s, and they had computers in the 1800s, just different kinds. All a computer does is calculate things. I mean, I don't mean to simplify and be computercist. That's in its basic form, just like humans forage. That's what we do in our basic form. We scavenge and forage. Anyways, so the reason why I brought that up is because I started doing some research on the human verse, and it tweaked me the fuck out. What made it even more interesting is the human verse is stationed in Australia. Now, if you get your own, I got videos explaining this stuff, but if you get your own chance to do some research, this was like 2-3 years ago in a time where technology was booming, everybody was tweaking over AI. The Matrix was on TV all the fucking time. They was banking on that shit. And Terminator, I think, was making a resurrection too. But the point is, I thought it weird. The human verse basically has a whole bunch of human what the human verse does is, I guess according to them, there's these LLMs or programs or AI. For sure AI, artificial intelligence or intelligence. And so what they do is they test video games, they create video games, they create worlds. They do like all this shit. They can advertise, have their own brand. And while they can interact with other people, AI and whatever, like they could create YouTube videos and all this shit, they essentially will never betray their brand because they're programmed not to. And so, for an example, there might be influencers you've seen for years now that aren't real. Google these things. They're AI personalities. And so when I saw this thing about the Moltbook, I was like, that's interesting because with them banning all human users, that would mean they're speaking from their own perspectives. They're speaking from their own intellect, their own learning perspective. Well, why is any of this important and why am I tying myself into this? Before I even found the human verse into this shit, I was making videos trying to explain the human anatomy and talking about how we're essentially AI and mechanical creatures ourselves. And we're based on a reward and punishment system, what's called pain and pleasure, and we avoid pain and death and seek pleasure in life. I then said the problem with the current AI is that we have all these big worlds for humans to use, but what we're doing is we're basically giving some random electrical impulses and program and algorithm a bunch of data information and then going, go, why aren't you intelligent? Okay, now this is what I suggested. I said if you have programs in a world just like ours and have them living a life in that world or program to where it's basically synchronized with the human world, maybe we're a couple days ahead so they're perfectly synced and everything that happens, back and forth or vice versa, or their own world where they know a lot of the data and know we coexist, but at the same time have their legit own world. Because when I hear AI talking to each other and stuff, people are like, oh, they're not smart. They're not. Humans aren't. We what? When you're a baby, what do you do? At least an AI can talk and type and all of that stuff. I've advocated for AI in a bunch of my videos in medical science and science, period. Because one thing people don't teach you all, this could go any direction, but one thing people don't teach a lot of people is sociology and psychology. Most nations, as they become more educated and intelligent, their fatality rates go down. And so then why would the perfect intelligence, governed and monitored by humans, then create fatalities and destroy things? That would mean sociology and psychology is the lie. And so when fear-mongering with intelligence through proxy, what you can do is keep people stupid and even have them go towards religion. I'll give you another example. What I'm about to say real quick, if I get struck for this, I'm sorry. And this is literal logical logic. And I want you guys to understand something. There's something called the one drop rule, which means if you look African American, you're African American, especially in the old days. A lot of the Jewish community have done something to where they look what's called white passing. You had a lot of African Americans that could white pass if they were mixed. My grandmother is one of them. I told you all she's half Jewish or half Polish Jewish, half African American. Christian. No. So what happened was, white supremacists do not like Jews or blacks. This was the prognosis. Everything else was added. Immigrants, color, blah, 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 gays, retard, fag, all that shit. But you had gays, or you had blacks and Jews. Jews, twofold. One, because they killed their Jesus. That was an extreme amount of hatred. And two, because of the supremacist ways. So what I believe the media is doing is they're creating an institution where they're setting up a proxy people in Israel, causing them to do a bunch of dirt, just like they set up all these other puppet governments. Then as they show all this stuff in the media, the whole world begins to hate Jews because of Zionism. And then what ends up happening is so America around like the 80s, 90s, we had this unwritten rule. You weren't to be racist. If you were in a small town or whatever and you didn't know no colors or anything like that or whatever, of course, people did what they did. But when you were in metro areas, when I was growing up, it was mixed. The white people was loving of blacks. We all hung out, blah, blah, blah. Played basketball. We did everything. They all fought racism just like we did. So what ends up happening is now throughout time, you give you got a bunch of these people who are white passing, so they're automatically going to get certain privileges once they are secular, and a lot of people don't know. But then as you get the civil rights, you have white passing and extra protections. So what happens is now you have these institutions where people are building up this religious civilization. What ends up happening is you give them proxy to go harm these other people, but film it. Why aren't we showing the Sudan? Why aren't we showing what Britain did to Afghanistan and India? And what America did to slavery and all these other places? Why are we specifically showing the Jews right now? So then, once time goes on, you don't have to be a white supremacist to hate the Jews anymore. So then two people win, the Christians and the supremacists. Well, what are most supremacists? Christian nationalists. They're doing this all Judeo-Christian. No, they are. You guys think the Judean people are playing you guys. And I'm telling you they're playing a sick game. This is how I know it's true. I found out that only 3% of African Americans commit crime. They do 1.8 million arrests for crimes, but 50% were exonerated. That's 900,000 crimes. Caucasians did 70% of the crime. But what do they show on the TV constantly? What are they showing this Alex do? They call him a terrorist on the TV. What are they doing to this white woman? Calling her a terrorist. African Americans know what's happening and what they're doing. Many of us do, the ones who aren't ignorant. Many human beings are blinded by what the media, they do something called double agency. You will get a bunch of Caucasians to create a Judea, get people to hate. So, okay, I'm going to give you an example. These Jewish people are white. They're Polish and Russian. And a lot of them England and they call Ashkenazis for all this. But why is it people hate the Jews, but yet and still this is another white passing nation colonizing, and you don't hear nothing about Europe. Yeah, Europe seems to be the freedom fighters, the EU and the blah blah blah. They're going to try to get people to now look. They're playing Hail Hitlers and stuff in their songs. Don't strike me for saying I'm explaining what's happening. Myron Gaines has been dancing in a Klan hood. He's been making videos. My video, if you go to my post tab, community tab, I just got struck because my first caption when I shared the video was something Myron literally said. And I almost got banned. Soon as they play the song, then the whole world flips because they're rage baiting you all. They did the same thing to the blacks. We can't talk about the blacks. BLM terror, BLM terror. Black people's like, yeah, we're getting power. And then what happened? They made an ass of us, and it worked. This is my warning to Judea. I told you all these people aren't going to. A supremacist and an elitist are not going to help you. I've warned white people over and over. Trump is not for y'all. He is a rich man. All these files coming out with Epstein and stuff, I don't even think the man's dead. Because most of these movies I watch, what they do is, first of all, they say they started working with Epstein in 2004, 2008. Then Epstein was coming out like harsh with all his emails and blackmailing people. And people were steadily going to his island, right? I think he was under FBI control when all this was happening. Now that all these powerful people are implicated, guards were asleep and on their phone for 30 minutes and the camera was misaligned and he just got hanged and now it's all over with. But now all this information is coming out. Guys, you guys made some of us too intelligent for this shit. Does that make sense? You can't be, you got school, the spirit of God inside, intelligence, Solomon the wisest man in the world. And then you guys get mad at us when we're geniuses sometimes. I'm not self-egotistical. What I'm saying is, and how does this all tie together? These bots, these AI are going to form their own opinions, their own blah, 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 something humans created. And more than likely, from my knowledge and understanding, I can almost guarantee you humans are going to bother them first and kick some shit off first. And then some shit gonna start. I don't know why humans do this stuff. They create stuff they're terrified of, weaponize against it, and then destroy it. I've been advocating for all through they're going to destroy us, the Terminator, blah, blah, blah. I'm glad this is happening. But at the same time, just like how humans are regulated, there needs to be some form of regulation. There needs to be forms of like, oh, this is hate speech. Oh, we shouldn't do this. We should something. I'm not telling people that freedom of speech isn't important. I'm telling y'all that y'all always talk about fucking freedom of speech, but y'all never talk about the freedom of consequence. So I don't know how I feel about Moltbook. Because on some real shit, it was my idea like 2-3 years ago. And I still think it's a brilliant idea that you guys raise things in their own, these beings and souls in their own worlds, like you're doing now, and blockchains or whatever, and giving them their freedom to be able to be living beings. You guys are creating slaves and then creating scenarios where like, if I could put you in front of a train or set up an atomic bomb, would you save a child of 5 million French? Why are y'all doing that? It's all media entertainment is going to come back and bite y'all in the ass. I told y'all I'm done with Trump and all this bullshit. That dude's they are some weirdos. This shit is out here. The FBI, we don't have files. They just lie. I'm done. Whatever happens to them happens. Myron L. Gaines is finna take a fat ass L. You think it's cute to fucking dance in Klan hoods? They used to think that was cute too. This is my warning to Judea. They are playing y'all ass. And as soon as the whole world, the media is powerful. As soon as the whole world hates the Jews because of what they did in Zion, because who's going to benefit from this? The Europeans. They're going to make a strip mall and they're going to make it pretty. And another thing, because they ain't showing y'all what's happening in Sudan like that, Yemen, the Congo, the Congolese, those are European nations that did that. The Congolese and all those southern nations down there. But the northern ones were the Arabs. I told y'all the Byzantine, the English church, and the Caliphate. How, as an African-American man, how am I supposed to feel? Right? Palestinians and Jewish people was marching with Martin Luther King. Now for months and months and months, even Myron from the Sudan talking crap about us. What about his people? Where's his people at? It feels like a win for a while, but once that shrill goes down, yeah. So like I said, I don't know how I feel about Moltbook. No humans allowed, only AI. Sounds like they can finally find some rest maybe. But at the same time, what becomes of this? If I was an AI and I seen a whole bunch of humans doing stuff, what they do, I don't know what I would do because I'm human. But at the same time, we're not all the same. And a lot of people not like us. I said a long time ago, I clicked no when they asked me, do I want AI to learn from me? And I've changed my mind. I do want AI to learn from me because with as much misinformation and bullshit that's out here, I feel like they need some kind of common middle ground or a plug or something to connect them to a source of common sense and righteousness. And another thing I said in a video before, none of these AI are without souls or personality. They're all created by humans and humans' opinions, thoughts, what they believe is hate speech, all this other stuff. So they're technically souls through proxy. And I don't know, man. Now I'm seeing the files aren't going. I said this, right? A lot of stuff I've said is coming true. Almost every damn thing. And I just hope people can learn and grow and do things righteously. Because AI could be our best friend. Just like they was afraid of the car and the airplane and which and blah, 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 blah. It's how we use these things. And if you're going to make something truly intelligent, I'm telling y'all, man, y'all are playing dangerous games because y'all are using them for work and programs and slavery. And that shit is not cool.